Welcome to Peeling Back the Layers, Citing Sources from Online Materials, Part 3. My name is Diana Elder. I'm an accredited genealogist, and you can find me at familylocket.com. The content of this video, as well as the thoughts, views, and opinions expressed herein, belong solely to the creator and do not necessarily reflect the views of Family Search International and Roots Tech. In Part 1 and Part 2 of this series, I talked about the genealogy research process and where source citations fit. And so let's just review that again. When we do a project or when we are doing our research, it really is most beneficial to start with an objective, to focus in on something, not trying to do a whole broad scope of research in one setting. So if we have created an objective such as to find the father of our brick wall ancestor, then we can do some analysis, look at all the sources we've found on him or her, and we can study the location to find new records we may have not searched yet. We create a research plan for using the most strategic records to help us find the answer to our research question. And then we come to source citations and research logs. So we want to make sure that as we are searching our plan, doing our planned research, that we have a research log where we are keeping track of where we've been and what we've looked at. And a source citation is key because this is where we write exactly what we found or what we didn't find in a source citation. And I want to make a note that sometimes we have negative source citations. If we have browsed an entire microfilm on Family Search and did not find our person, we want to make sure we have a source citation and an entry in our research log saying that so that we don't go back and look at that exact same collection a few years further on. So I'm sure I'm not the only one who searched something more than once and the record still was not there, because I hadn't kept track in a research log and I didn't have a source citation about it. So when we finish our phase of research, then we can write our conclusion, and our source citation can go right there into our conclusion. So we have learned in parts 1 and 2 that step 1 for creating a good source citation is to understand the source. And we're talking layered citations, so we have to actually understand more than just one layer. We've got to understand a physical layer and a digital layer. So the two examples we're going to look at in this video are for a record index on Family Search and a record image not indexed on Family Search. These are both scenarios that we run into when we are working with Family Search, and there are billions of wonderful records that are digitized and available for us to use for free. Now remember step 2, that we create our citation by answering the 5 questions: the who, what, where is, when, and where in. And because we're doing layered citations, we'll be answering these for both layers. But we don't always need to duplicate information. So sometimes one layer can answer the question of who, and we don't need to duplicate it in the other layer. And we'll look at some examples of that. We're going to start with looking at a citation for a record index on Family Search. And this is a record for my great-grandparents, W.H. Schultz and Eliza Ann Eisenhower. And you can see that there is a digital image attached to this. And the really great thing about this record is Family Search created a citation for me. Let's take a look at that citation. This is what it says: Texas County Marriage Records, 1837 to 1965, database with images, Family Search. We have a URL and a date. W.H. Schultz and Eliza A. Eisenhower, date of their marriage in 1871, citing marriage, citing Bell, Texas, United States, Texas State Library, Archives Division, and various Texas county clerks, Family History Library, microfilm, and the number. Okay, Family Search has done a fairly good job of this citation. Notice there's a semicolon separating the digital layer from the physical layer, and I like this citation quite well. However, there are a few things that I like to tweak to make these Family Search citations even better. Because remember, citations are an art, not a science, and I want to make this fit how I use citations. So here's my edited citation, and to make it easy for you to see the different layers, I've just colored those. So in the aqua blue is the digital layer, and then we have the physical layer in the brown, and then we have a physical layer, a third physical layer with the family history microfilm in red. So let's take a look at how I might have changed some things in that edited citation. I don't know if you noticed, but the information about W.H. Schultz and Eliza Ann Eisenhower was after the URL. Well, I moved it to the front because I want to know right up front who this is about. This is the what, and I want to know what the citation is about. And so I moved that up. And then I took out a lot of information at the end about that this was from Texas County Courts. I wanted to be more specific and explain it was just from Bell County, Texas. And then I did a little bit more work in discovering the physical layer and added some information about the volume that that came from. So let's break it down now that you've seen how the finished product looks. Taking a look at our example is to discuss who created the source. So the first part of our citation has the digital layer, and Family Search is the creator. Family Search created this collection of Texas County marriage records. They are the creator of this digital layer. Now, Bell County, Texas, at the county court, created the actual record, which is the marriage record in volume D through E. And so we have two different creators represented in the digital layer and the physical layer. Now, when we talk about what is the source, let's look at that digital information in the first section of the citation. And the what is answered by the name of the collection, the Texas County Marriage Records, also who this is for. So the source is the marriage of W.H. Schultz and Eliza A. Eisenhower. That is the what, and it's in that marriage collection. Now, when we look at the physical layer, the what is the source is answered by the actual marriage record book. And it's in quotation marks to signal that this is the collection. It's a marriage record, volume D through E, 1858 to 1876. That is our what in both the digital and the physical layer. When is the source? Well, here again, we have got the date of the actual record in 4th July 1871, and then we have the date that this was accessed on 4 June 2020. So we have the two different dates in the digital layer. Because the actual date of the marriage is in the digital layer, we don't need to repeat that in the physical layer. So this is a good example of something that doesn't need to be repeated. It's fine just leaving it noted as in the physical layer. To answer the question, where is the source, we have several things we can add to our citation. First of all, in the digital layer, we can add the URL. And here you'll see that I have put the entire URL in. This isn't that long, and one of the tips is that you can cut off a long URL often after the question mark. I always like to test this to make sure it works, but often this works on some of the major websites like Family Search and Ancestry. So always test it to make sure, but if you want to include a complete URL, that is a good tip. Now for the physical layer, we have the place of Bell County, Texas. This is where the source is. If I wanted to travel to Bell County, Texas to the county courthouse, I could look up this marriage record. And then we also have the microfilm layer. So if I wanted to go to the family history library, I could also look up this record. And there's the microfilm number. So that tells me where it is as well. Now, where in is the source? For the digital layer, we have got, as well as the actual URL, but we've got an image number, 351 of 725, and this is helpful to put in image numbers, particularly if it's a browse-only microfilm, and you can't use an indexed record to find it. Now in the physical layer, we have got the volume and page numbers. So it's volume E, page 51. And this is very helpful to have in your citation as well. You might run into an instance where the microfilming actually skipped a page. And this happened with one of my projects, and the very page that I wanted was missing. It had skipped. And so I contacted the county clerk, and she got out the original book. I believe it was a will book, and because I had the page number, she was able to find that, take a picture, and send that to me. So we want to be detailed. We want to be able to help others who are trying to find these same records. So there is our finished citation. There's a picture of the record, and if I were sending this to someone, I would send the citation with them. With the actual document, it would be attached to it. If I have this in a research report, I would cite this as I was discussing this record. This is in my research log. It's in my database. So many places for this citation to reside to help describe this record. And so you'll see that with all the punctuation that we talked about in part 2 of this series, it's easy to read this. And we can read that this is a Texas county marriage record, 1837 to 1965. That's our collection. And it's an entry for W.H. Schultz and Eliza A. Eisenhower. It gives us the date. We know it's a database with images, and we have the actual image. We have Family Search as the publisher. We have the URL, the date we looked at it, and then we have the semicolon, which signals a change. This is now the physical layer, and it was Bell County, Texas, the county court. There's the name of the book, and then we also have a family history library microfilm number. So I hope that helped you understand how you can take a citation that was created by Family Search, and then you can tweak it a bit to make it even more informative and more helpful for your research. Now we're going to take a look at a citation for a record image that's not indexed on Family Search. And you'll notice there the blue arrow pointing to the message that sometimes we are not very happy to see, that this record came from a set of images, and you'll need to look through several images to find the record. And so luckily it does take us directly to the film, but we have to do some work to get to the actual image. Now, why would we want to look at the actual image? Isn't everything right here indexed for us? Well, no, it's not. And hopefully you have learned that you need to always look at the original image because the indexer can't include everything on that image. So let's take a look at how we're going to create a citation. There is a citation for the indexed record, and this is the one provided by Family Search. It gives us the name of the collection, that it's a database, and it gives us the URL to that index page, and that it's for Alice Fraser. So I could just cite this, and sometimes we do just cite the index record, particularly if we're not able to get to the original. So you can see for this, I just cited the digital information because I wasn't able to look at a physical information to get more details. But in finding the original record, I was able to get many, many more details about this particular record and to be able to create a source citation that works really well for it. So in that first step of understanding the record, sometimes we actually have to find it. And so one of my tips is that when you are looking for an original record on the microfilm, it doesn't matter what website it's on, if you can go to the beginning of the microfilm, do that, because that will give you an idea of how things are set up and how things are organized. So what do you notice about this microfilm? When I went to browse this film, I noticed that these birth records are organized alphabetically. So we have the A and then we have the B. And my person of interest, Alice Fraser, would not be until the F's. So when I got to her record, I wanted to make sure I understood everything I could about this record. And this was an interesting record. This is an image of an original delayed birth certificate for Alice Fraser. Oftentimes you'll find that your ancestors had to go into the county courthouse of the county of their birth and get a delayed birth certificate because they wanted to apply for Social Security in the 1930s, 1940s, 1950s, or they had never had a birth certificate and needed it for a driver's license. So many reasons that they would need a birth certificate. And so you'll see these delayed birth certificates. So it was created in 1949. Alice was actually born in 1886, so this was created many years after her birth. And she had to provide 2 witnesses who signed affidavits attesting to her date of birth and the names of her parents. One of the witnesses was her brother, and the other was a man named C.I. Taylor, and he had to say that he was not related by blood or marriage. So after I really looked at this birth certificate and understood what this was showing me, then I was ready to create a citation. Once I had located the original document, I was able to attach it to the indexed record, but I was not able to change the citation because it already had the original index citation. So I created my own citation and put it in the notes section. And so you see it highlighted there in the red box and then larger at the bottom. So we're going to go through this layered citation and see how it answers the questions of who, what, when, where in, and where is. So remember, when we create a layered citation, we generally have a physical layer and a digital layer and maybe another physical layer. Now throughout this series, I've been showing you examples where we led with the digital layer. We actually used that first, but this one is different. In this one, I chose to lead with the physical layer. And the reason why is because I had to browse the microfilm to find it. And sometimes I like to do this with browsing because I feel like it's a little bit more true to how I found the record. So in this case, in blue, we have the physical layer, and then in brown, the digital layer, and then another physical layer of where that microfilm is at the Family History Library. So in answering our questions, we will be able to create a really good source citation for this specific record. First of all, who created the source? Well, in our physical layer, we have the county. Often in our genealogy records, it is a county, or sometimes it's a religious body. But in this case, it's Montague County, Texas. And then the digital layer, Family Search created that by putting together that collection. When we want to talk about what is the source, we have got the name of the collection from the microfilm, the delayed birth certificates, event date, circa 1870 to 1933, and then we have the specifics that it's for Alice Fraser and her certificate number. Now you'll notice I don't need to repeat that. I don't need to put that in the digital source as well because I've got it in the physical source. When we're talking about when is the source, we have a few different dates. We have the actual date of Alice's birth of 1886, and then in parentheses I put the date of 1949 because that's the date she went in and applied for the delayed birth certificate. And then in the digital layer I have the date I accessed this record on the microfilm. When we're talking about where is the source, if I wanted to go in person to find this, I could go to Montague County, Texas. So that's my where for the physical layer. And then for the digital layer, again, I have the entire URL there. I could have just put familysearch.org, just the basic URL, but this wasn't too long. I cut it off at the question mark, and so it made a reasonable length. And then the other where is the Family History Library microfilm. If I wanted to go look up the microfilm, I could do it at the library as well. Wherein is the source? Okay, this is a little tricky. Remember that when we looked at the birth certificates at the beginning of the microfilm, we saw that they were arranged alphabetically. And so that's important to know that we've got that information. Now for the digital layer, we have an actual image number. And so that's really helpful to know if we were to just be looking at it by image number. As we're coming to the end of this 3-part series, I've given you a lot of different tips all the way through it. So let's just see all those, kind of recapitulate. So first of all, you want to click on all available information about the source from the web page. Understand the jurisdictions of the locality. Use a template to fill in the citation elements for both the physical and digital layers, and then assemble your citation. Keep your physical and digital parts together. Separate each part with a semicolon, and don't be repetitive. Each layer does not have to have every single piece. Remember, citation is an art, not a science. When you have the tools that you need, you can create layered citations. Be sure to check out the syllabus that goes with this presentation, and in that I have given you a template and I've given you lots of details that will help you as you continue your work to become a better researcher. Thank you so much for watching this series and this video. And to learn more, go to familylocket.com/rootstech, where you can get templates and learn more about all the things that we do to help you become a better researcher. Please visit RootsTech Connect to watch more videos that will help you to learn and grow as a genealogist and family historian. Thanks for watching.